Okay, we're gonna be on YouTube Live, and I'll put it on there later. Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Slim Nation AM Special Edition. AM is the show we have on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and this is obviously PM, at least here in Virginia. But this is a special show that we're having with a good friend of mine. She's been on our show before on the Portsmouth Coffee Talk, which is related to this show. But this is the Slim Nation, and we want to welcome Tracy Hewitt Hobson on our show this morning. Hey, Tracy, how you doing? Well, I said this morning, but this afternoon. Got that
Well, it is morning for me.
How about it?
I'm on the West Coast in sunny Los Angeles. So yes, it is morning.
I was correct there. Good morning to you. And of course, I'm representing the Slim Nation. I'm representing, and I'll tell you why I'm representing DUU right now, because she is a fellow Unionite, and she is originally from the city of Portsmouth, went to Manor High School, and went from there, went to Virginia Union, and went to Texas Southern.
Texas Southern for grad school.
Right,
yep.
For grad school. Yep. And Texas Southern, after you went there, what did that lead you to? What did you, that's when you went from Texas Southern to California, or was it some things in between there?
Some things in between. So now you're aging us, Slim. Don't do that.
I didn't say any ages. This could have happened last year.
That's true. That's true. When I left Texas, I moved to DC, lived in DC for a while. And then I came to California. So I've been out here for almost 30 years now.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
You go where the opportunities are.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, I have Tracy back on here again, and when she was on the Portsmouth Coffee Talk, it was doing National Adoption Month, but it doesn't have to be Adoption Month for us to talk about that. And she talked about growing up as an adoptee, and I shared my story with her and the audience as well. I didn't find out I was adopted until I was 21, but she knew from the beginning, and growing up there. And then as an adult, and after having 3 children, DNAs.
Yeah, 1, 2,
I'll
and 3.
explain that later. But she had a quest and wanted to, find out a little bit more about her heritage, of being a Korean African-American here in the States, and which that was most of her experience up to the adulthood. And she had the opportunity to go back to Korea and sort of search for her roots. So most people saw that. So sort of briefly recap that before we go into what's going on now.
Yep. You're right, Slim. It's been a long journey, but highlights, once I decided that was something that ate at my heart for years after adult, especially after I had my DNA. My youngest one, my son, my middle one, my son actually is the one that really pushed the bio search from a DNA perspective. And my youngest one gifted me the trip to Korea. It was the first time I had returned since being adopted, since I left 50 plus years ago. Started kind of a simultaneous search for my biological mom as well as my biological father. And while I was in Korea, I did find my biological father. So that came through. Unfortunately, my bio mother search did not come to full fruition, although I did gain a lot of information. So it just encouraged me and motivated me even more to keep searching. I've talked to several adoptees since then. There were a few things that I decided that I wanted to do. That journey was very, very cathartic as well as enlightening. And so fast forward, should we talk about where I am now, or do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much recapped that, and we might touch on that a little bit, but okay. Let's talk about now, because we talked about during that time, you found out a lot of things, and there still was some pieces missing. But one of the things you found out or got a chance to meet some brothers and sisters on your, well, I would say in the adopted family, but they were really your father's, on your father's side. So they were blood relatives. And you got a chance to meet this. So the whole search led to a lot of different things, you know.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Abroad and here.
I had the blessing when I returned, like I said, when I was in Korea, I found who my biological father was. So when I returned to the States, about 2 weeks after I got back, I was formally introduced to my uncle, my one surviving uncle. And since then, I have actually met in person all of my one surviving uncle, of course, all of my first cousins, several of my second cousins who've all been very, very embracing. I did find out I have two sisters. Unfortunately, I have not had the opportunity to meet them in person. Mm-hmm. It's been a little bit of a, I won't say struggle, but a little bit of a challenge, I think, for them as well as myself to navigate what this really means. You know, they are just a couple years younger than me, and all of a sudden, you know, pop up as, "Hey, I'm your sister." Mm-hmm. So we're still trying to navigate that piece. I'm encouraged, although, you know, like I said, we have not met in person, but I'm looking forward to it. The rest of my biological father's family have been incredibly embracing. I've visited with them a few times now. Mm-hmm. Some of them are in Connecticut, some are in Atlanta, some of them. So, but it's been really, really nice. Really, really nice.
And that's, I guess that's gratifying as far as, you know, you're knowing your family over mm-hmm. here. Mm-hmm. But what about, is it still missing pieces of the Korean family? Because it might be brothers and sisters there that were a part of family.
I believe that, or at least some of the information that we've received, I am told, or I've been led to believe that I do have siblings in Korea, mm-hmm. Particularly a brother. Mm-hmm. I've not found any hard evidence of that, but that's what the information so far has led me to believe. I have also understand that my mother is still living. Oh, wow. I have not found her. Still working with some agencies to see if we can make that happen. You know, I'm very, very anxious about it. But in the meantime, what I have made plans to do is actually return to Korea again later this year, at the beginning of next year, to actually live and try to immerse myself and really give myself time mm-hmm. to finish that search. So yeah,
you said actually live. You know, that will be your home from now on. Mm-hmm.
That will be my home for at least 2 years. Okay. I just went through, like I said, because it was such an enlightening experience. You find out a lot of things. You find out a lot of things about everything from citizenship to where you really are in life. And through this, I knew I did not become naturalized as a U.S. citizen until the 2000s, like 2008, 2009. And in the process of all of this search, I reestablished my dual citizenship. So now I was green card status all the way up until 2008.
Green card status?
Green card status as a permanent resident.
For people that don't know, what does that mean? How is that different from not being a green card status as far as an American?
So as far as the U.S. was concerned, I was a Korean citizen. Okay. I was not a U.S. citizen. And because of that,
could you vote?
I was not supposed to vote, and I did not vote up until the point that I was naturalized. Mm-hmm. Didn't stop though me from working and paying taxes as though.
Yeah, that's amazing. You're paying taxes.
There you go. Vote. There you go. Yeah. But I had to report to the Department of Immigration for years. And even when we were at Union, people didn't realize I was still having to report to the Department of Immigration once a year, let them know where I was, and et cetera. Once I came out of college, I stopped reporting and did not realize that was a no-no.
No, wow.
So luckily it all came to light, I guess. I had all of my ID stolen. I had my purse stolen, so all of my ID was gone. And it was at that point that working with the Department of Immigration, working with an immigration lawyer, all of these things started coming out, where I was not a U.S. citizen. I had not been naturalized. My parents, my father in particular, felt like that decision was mine. And so they never forced me to become a U.S. citizen. They left it up to me. Because I was in a situation where I had no documentation, I was forced to be naturalized, but retained dual citizenship. And because I had never returned to Korea, essentially the Korean government kind of put my Korean citizenship on hold, I guess, or it sat dormant. And then when I found that out, I had to work with the consulate to get it all back. So, and that was a very interesting process.
Wow. And people don't realize how, especially those people that feel like people, immigrants and things like that are not a good thing. Don't realize how much, and I can't use the word immigrant because you've been here, how much it takes to be even a part of America, even though you're paying your taxes, you're doing everything else that America requires us to do. But it's still like that little hitch there where there's certain things you still can't do. And then you got to deal with these idiots that think immigrants or people from other countries are something that we should be afraid of. That's the political part of it.
Exactly. And what I found out when I went back to, this has been an 18-month to try to reactivate my dual citizenship. 18-month to do it. And in that process, I found out that my name had never legally been changed to Tracy. That as far as the Department of Immigration was concerned, as far as the US was concerned, I was still legally, Tracy was an alias. It was not. And so through all of this, I had to get that straightened out. It's been quite the experience. But I can say proudly, February 16th, I declared my dual citizenship. So I'm now back as a dual citizen for the US and Korea. This dual citizenship still does list my Korean name, also known as Tracy. So at least now I'm recognized as both. So, it's been quite an experience, and I've been writing a lot more about it, just my own journaling thoughts.
Yeah, it sounds like a book at some point, but and I'm really amazed but not surprised that that you are really pursuing this, and because it's something like I think we talked about last time. It was something inside when I mentioned about I thought I was having dreams, but they were really memories. All those years, and how internally your self of being doesn't let that go, even at a young age. So even at this point where we are now, you still want to know. And I was fortunate to have a brother that filled me in on that birth side, and at first it was a lot of people here in Portsmouth, and it was overwhelming. He just came down here one time. I'm gonna take you here. And we were going from house to house, and a lot of those people I knew or played basketball with were on my teammates, and found out they were first cousins. So that was overwhelming. So I had to step back and take. But over the years, I guess, and that's why I'm amazed that you're going to go back there and live, but because you have to complete that saga. I mean, you have to complete that knowing who you are. And even if you don't find your mother or your brother, and I hope that's not the case, at least, excuse me, at least you have the opportunity to live there, and know you have made that you have tried to do that, or you will be living, wow, I never did it, but you have to go out there and do it. And committing to 2 years there like that, that's amazing.
No, absolutely. Slim, and thank you for those kind words. It does mean a lot because it's all about full circle. Like you said, it's all about being full circle. And my attitude about it is, if I go out there for 2 years and I struggle, then I will know what my mother felt like.
Yeah.
if I go out there and I am successful, then I know that I am living, that my mother and my father are looking down on me, and I am living the life that they wanted for me. So I view it as, while I do have a little bit of fear about doing it, I also look forward to it, because there's no way that it will not be a good thing.
Yeah.
Regardless. So.
Well, things happen for a reason. And if you go all the way back to your adopted parents, or let me just drop the adopted and your parents, that made sure they kept that your cultural background in front of you. So when you go, and then lately you've been studying, just like sitting there eating a plate of something that's moving, I'll never forget that. But so getting used to that kind of culture, so going over there won't be so much of a cultural shock for you, because you all your life you have been keeping up with your culture and your heritage. And it might be a few things that might be different for you, because you've been Americanized. And but I guess things are different over there now compared to years and years and years ago. They're probably more Americanized than we are over here.
in some parts of Seoul and around surrounding area, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Indeed. So let me. I want to go into the DNAs for a minute, because you had mentioned briefly about how they notice something in you, and I know, and yeah. I know every time you talk about it, I know how emotional this is, and I really feel you, because I still get emotional when I talk about what my journey. But as far as DNAs, and they noticed in you that it was something there that wasn't complete. They knew of the Korean heritage, but and you have been here that long. So talk about how important that was for them to make sure that you had this journey.
And like you said, and you don't realize that, when you're talking to your kids, or when your kids are around you, they pay attention to a lot. I mean, they have more insight than I think we give them credit for sometimes. And all three of mine, I didn't talk much about how I felt, or, I was very kind of, and you remember this from Union, pretty much introverted, right? I'm very quiet, more observant than I am quiet. And when I would get upset about something or frustrated about something, I was never forthcoming about what it was. What was it that made me that frustrated? Because they always kind of felt like there was something underneath, And they had said to me on several occasions that they really felt like they didn't know who I was, and that for some reason they felt like they could tell that something was there was a big hole. And the older they got, the older I got, the more and more I started talking about Korea, started talking about, and as they put it, they saw an inherent sadness. Even through every smile. I might have smiled brightly or whatever, but they could tell in my eyes that I was very sad. And because of that, they all kind of got together and decided, you know what? We can't let mommy keep going through this. And my son, like I said, he decided one Christmas to get me 23andMe. And he literally is the one that brought me the tube and said, spit. I didn't, I was rushing in and out because I was traveling a lot at the time. I spit, didn't think much of it. He sent it back, and he's the one that kind of pushed that start. He and my younger one, they kind of in cahoots, and my youngest one decided, you know what, let's just send her back. Let's just take her back. So she can feel it, she can see it, she can taste it, and she went with me on the trip. The three of them, I owe a lot to them for this. So for sure.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And I'm glad, and I mentioned to you about a show on HBO that is about mixed children,
Mhm.
and the focus is on the children as opposed to adults, and how they're navigating being mixed, and
Mhm.
they had quite a few that were mixed with a lot of different things. Did your DNAs, and I guess they came up in a time where it might have been a little different from the times you came up, because they probably were in school. When you were in school, like Manor, it wasn't a whole lot of mixed, uh,
Mhm.
other mixed races there, I'm assuming. But today, when they probably came up, it probably was a little different. It was quite a few, and that they could associate with,
You
but
know,
they still might have had some issues at some points.
they did. It was really interesting. They are California kids, right?
Mm,
So,
totally
which
different California.
very different, very diverse, and they all three of them have a very eclectic group of friends,
Hmm.
friends from all over the world. And interesting enough, they didn't necessarily feel it here. They were very proud of the fact that they were mixed race, and um, people in California, they wasn't. It was just an everyday fact, right? Because
Hmm.
there's so many. It wasn't until they went back to school back east. My oldest one went to Case Western in Ohio, in Cleveland,
Hmm.
Ohio. The two younger ones went to Morehouse and Spelman
Hmm.
in Atlanta. And that was the first time that they actually got a taste of what that felt like.
People asking,
Colorism,
"What are you?"
colorism within the African American community, and just racism overall, right? They
Hmm.
had never experienced that.
Right.
Um, and I think for them, it was a light bulb for them that they kind of got it. I think that it really came to light for them what I must have gone through
Hmm. Hmm.
growing up. And so, we talked about there were a couple of incidents where, the mama bear and me had to come out and say, this is not
Hmm. It's not
um,
appropriate.
right, not appropriate. The hidden dragon comes out, and
Yeah.
my kids laugh about it. They're like, wow, they just, people just
Yeah.
have no
Where'd that
idea.
come from?
Right. Um, and I've stood my ground on it. The things that I've had to fight for them, and the things I've had to fight against for them, is mind-boggling sometimes. And uh, the but inherently in fighting for them, I was fighting for myself too.
Hmm. Hmm.
So um, yeah, it's been very different. And you're right, all growing up, um, had a lot of it. Had to fight a lot. Um,
Yeah, I can remember you saying on the first interview that they, all they, well, I guess the term back then was Oriental as opposed to
mhm,
Asian,
mhm,
and all they knew, they called you everything but what you really were, Korean.
mhm.
And
Um,
and all they had to do was ask.
right. That's it. And you know what, and I think you can appreciate this too. So when you're adopted, you already struggle with identity,
Hmm.
you know. Um, and then you start asking yourself, well, what am I really fighting for? Am I
Hmm.
fighting, you know, uh, not sure, because you're not sure what community you really stand in, right? And which one is really going to accept you. Well, maybe neither will accept you, maybe both will accept you, maybe, but you start questioning, yourself.
Indeed.
um, and labels, we've talked about this, labels can be damaging,
Right.
so
And people don't know that until they, experience that themselves.
mhm,
Or or they have enough, or it's just like asking. I always say communication is a key,
mhm,
because to understanding, because a lot of people don't communicate, and sometimes you might have never experienced it, but just talking to someone that has, it makes you better, helps you better to understand that
mhm,
person and where they're coming from, and it might open some things within yourself that you
mhm,
didn't know you had.
mhm.
But anyway, as far and how do you, I can imagine your kids now looking at the way the country is now. Seem like things are reversing. Things that they. I'm glad they had that experience at Morehouse and things like that, because it prepared them. But they probably didn't think, or we didn't think, that we will see the kind of reversal in some communities that we're seeing
Mhm.
now. You know, Why is this important? Why are we still moving forward like we were at
Mhm.
one time? But I guess you can say it's always been here, but it was kind of covert. Now it's over. Now the people
Mhm.
are open with it. I don't like
Mhm.
you. I don't want you. You know, we
Right.
don't want to be the minority. But if we are the minority, we still want the power, and we'll
Mhm.
do anything to keep the power. Just we won't go into that. Just my little political thing. That usually the colonel on Boston Coffee Talk that's usually his role to associate politics with everything. But I just had to throw that in because we're looking at that now. You know, we're
Mhm.
facing that now
Mhm.
with a lot of people that are in control, in charge.
Mhm.
So that's why voting is important.
Important. It is very important.
Yeah.
It is, and I stand for both my sides.
Hmm.
I don't stand for one more than the other, and I think that for some people they don't understand that,
Right.
right? They don't appreciate it. They don't. Um, when you get asked that question, what do you identify as? I'm like,
Hmm.
well, first identify as a person,
Yeah.
right?
Human being.
Um, right, as a human being. And I'm not going to deny either side, just like my kids don't deny either side, right? It is who they are,
Yeah,
you
because
know.
it took both sides to bring you here, so you can't deny it. And that was one of the themes of the movie I mean the documentary I was telling you about with the young kids. You know, they were saying people tried to get them to pick a side, even their peers.
Mhm.
You know, so
Mhm.
and they didn't. You know, most of them and some of them did pick a side. You know,
Yeah.
or realize, well, I'm gonna have to identify as black because that's the way the world is going to see me.
Mhm.
But most of them said, I'm going to celebrate both sides because that's who
Mhm.
I am, you know, on both sides. Mhm.
It is, and I, like you said, I was adopted by an African American family. I grew up in an African American community. That's where that's what I know from an environment standpoint. But I'm grateful to my extended family because they never pushed it one way or the other either.
Mhm.
They were, I was just Tracy to them, and
Mhm.
for that I will always be appreciative of that. But yeah, people on the outside think that because I grew up in an African American family, because I was, that I'm supposed to identify as black. I'm like, well, why am I supposed to do that?
Mhm.
What who set that rule?
Yeah.
Um,
Who's choice is it? Let me
right.
go. I'm gonna go right now to Tati. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, I saw where she got an award. I guess it came from, well, the Reliance Gala, which is a coalition of Asian and Pacific Islanders in entertainment, which is a
Entertainment.
group that sort of
Hmm.
advocates for
Hmm.
those groups in Hollywood. And she received that award. And I'm sure how important was that because you know, going to that last movie I saw her in, having the opportunity, even though that wasn't a theme, because you see this in so many movies where people of a certain heritage, you know, they never get a chance to really speak their language.
Hmm.
You know, and I talked about one time that I see a lot of shows from Africa that are on social media, on YouTube or something like that. Um, Netflix, and they always make sure they include their language. You know, most of it is English, but
Hmm.
right in between the English sentence, they'll start speaking the African language.
Hmm.
And I think that's just so great because even though they know they have to show their wares over here in America because that's where the money is as far as that entertainment field, they still want to include their heritage. They don't want to lose that. And like I mentioned, that last movie she was in, great movie, by the way. I mean, loved her part, and
Thank
just the
you.
way it ended because I didn't know which way it was going as far with her. And then you had to watch and the way they did it, showing certain uh, segments or what is it? Well,
The
certain,
color segments, yeah, the
yeah,
color episodes, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
kaleidoscope, yeah.
right, and sort of putting them in a way where you had to sort of follow and say, because at first you didn't know which way she was going. Well,
Uh-huh.
and then you saw all along she was aware the whole time
Hmm.
of what she needed to do,
Hmm.
but you didn't know at first if she was,
Exactly,
rejecting the
exactly.
daddy, or
Yeah, that was Kaleidoscope
yeah,
on
kaleidoscope.
Netflix. Yep,
Right, right.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
and she got a chance to speak that language. But getting back to
Mhm.
the awards, I mean, that was her speech was very moving to me, just sitting there watching it. And I know that was important, being given that award by that group, that particular group, because it sort of solidified, her
Mhm.
side, her Korean side
Mhm.
got the recognition. They didn't,
It was the Radiance Gala by KP Wright, and they are the go-to organization for the AAPI community in Hollywood, like you said,
Mhm.
very prominent. Um, she didn't tell me, I didn't know she was going to get that award
Oh, okay.
until I got there. The only thing she said to me, which was very interesting, she said, "Hey, mommy, I have this, event. I really would like for you to attend with me." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, what kind of event is it?" And she only said to me that it was an API
Mhm.
event. And I went to, there's an unforgettable gala as well that's held in December in Hollywood as well. And I attended that one with her last year, and didn't think much of it. I was like, "Sure, I'll go." Um, just asked what the dress was. She was, just cocktail attire. So she didn't say anything, and I
Mhm.
did not know it until it was actually announced at the gala. Um, it was, when I think about it now, her speech was just. She said some things in there that I didn't realize just how important it was for her.
Mhm.
Um, how important it was for her, for me.
Yeah.
Um, um, and the AAPI community has been incredibly embracing of her. I
Mhm.
mean, they have never questioned. The minute they realized that she had any Asian, they totally embraced her.
Mhm.
And for her, that was refreshing. She struggled a little. She has struggled a little bit um, with organizations, African American organizations, in the same way. But the AAPI community has been, they support her 1,000%. And when I
Mhm.
realized what her fan base was in Asia, it was really surprising. She does know the Korean language much better than me.
Mhm.
Sorry.
You're
um,
getting there though, right?
right, I am getting there. I mean, I do know a few words. I can't respond to things, but she reads and writes. And she is read and she learned to read and write it. Ooh, probably starting in middle high school. She does speak it. I think she's proficient at it. She doesn't give herself that credit, but
Well, it sure sounded like it in the movie. And was that her idea to sort of, to have those little segments in there where they actually spoke the language? And I think that was important because the way it was
right.
brought in, it wasn't like uh, we got to show this. It was just like, okay, you got these two
Mhm.
Korean girls sitting there, and this is what happens when you're sitting there by yourself. You speak your language, same.
Exactly.
Same.
She and the young lady that played her sister in it, they went to the showrunner and said, "Look, if we're going to play this role, let's make it genuine. Let's make it real. Let's make it, and we believe that this is what." And when they initially did it, they kind of did it as an improv initially, and there was a little bit of hesitancy. Um, and they, Tia and SJ went and said, "Look, why are you so hesitant? We're the Koreans in this, so we we know
Yeah,
the language, right?" So, and luckily the showrunner was like, "You know what? You're absolutely right. Go for it."
yeah.
And so they did. And she and SJ are still very close today.
Mhm.
They still keep in touch. She has a lot of Korean friends in the entertainment industry.
Mhm.
She, like I said, she's been fully embraced there. A lot of fan base there, and um, they're prepping now, I think, for her to go over to Korea actually to do a little bit more press over there.
Mhm.
Um, so it's the journey has been quite interesting.
Yeah, and
So
the last thing on that piece, because I enjoyed the movie so well, I like the way they did it because they didn't. It wasn't like in your face sort of thing. We want to make sure
Mhm.
make sure you know that they're Korean. I mean, we could look at them and see it visually,
Mhm.
but you know, it was just a casual thing where they're home, and that's what happens.
Mhm.
And you know, so many movies you see different ethnicities, and it's never mentioned. You know,
Mhm.
they just there.
Mhm.
But you know, you got to show that, you know, they might walk down the street and deal with some things that might be occurring out there. You know,
Mhm.
so you know, just make sure it's represented in the movie. The way they did it was just, you know, great. I just love the way they did it. They just slid it across you,
Right, right.
saw it, but it wasn't something that you said, "Oh wow,
In your
that hit
face,
me in the
right?
face." You know, it was
Right.
just, you know, they just went on.
And she has recognized the fact with, and she's been real honest about this in interviews. She realizes that, and majority of the time, because she presents as Black, although she also recognizes, and you know this, in all of her characters, her intent is to play strong women, right?
Hmm.
Even in their flaws, that they're still strong. And she speaks about this. She says she has come to the realization that no matter what role she's in, she is not playing a Black woman. She's not playing an Asian woman. She is
Hmm.
playing a biracial individual,
Right,
right?
right.
Um, and she's sticking to that's who she is, and she's very proud of that. She was like,
Right.
well, why, again, why I may present one way, but it doesn't take away from who I am or what I am.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm glad she has the opportunity to do that, and not
mhm,
coming up in a time, or you know, it could still be going on now where, you know, the studios, and they have so much control over you. You have to, you know, adhere to what they say, or
mhm.
you can't, you know, pick out. And she has branched out, and look forward to just continues to watch her grow. And you know, she's a star in my eyes, and many
Thank
others, I
you.
think. You know,
Thank you.
and I follow her,
Yeah.
and I mentioned before, she was I appreciated her before I knew she was your daughter. And then I think when I first started seeing her in the Sabrina
Hmm.
movies, and yeah, I appreciated her then. And then I found out she was your daughter. I said, okay, and I felt like I knew her.
Yeah, it's so funny because a lot of people don't realize it. She's very conscious about keeping it our family as protected as possible.
Hmm.
And she's just my kid, right?
Right.
So, and she happens to have a job that might be a little bit more visible than others, but it is her job, and she thoroughly enjoys it. All my kids are thriving. All my kids are just really good individuals, and I'm
Hmm.
grateful that they are kind, compassionate people. So
Yeah, and you're surely blessed in that matter. And it's where did it come from? You. I mean, it all starts at home, like we talk about different
thank you.
different things that are going on there. It starts at home in the family.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
I appreciate you coming on and sort of following up on what you're doing, and we're going to continue to follow your saga, especially when you go to Korea. Uh, we're going to bring you on, get you on from Korea, and
That would be
talk
awesome.
about your experiences there. That's going to be amazing. But again, I appreciate you coming on, and any last words you might want to say to probably adoptees like yourself that might be trying to navigate, what's, their heritage, or things like that, because there are places you can go. Just be careful. Make sure you do your research before you go,
Mhm.
because we mentioned briefly before we came on about there are some agencies that are not quite live up to the moral standards of
Mhm.
other agencies. So be careful who you deal with, when you're trying to do that. But go ahead. Anything that you care?
I would say to any adoptee, your journey is your own. Um, Always be encouraged. Don't let anybody try to convince you that you're not enough, because you are. Um, and there's some adoptees that don't want to know their legacy, which is fine. It's whatever works for you. But if you are interested in it, don't let anyone discourage you. You are definitely enough. Um, and don't hesitate. I think that's probably the biggest thing is don't hesitate.
Mhm. And never think it's too late.
Never think it's too late. Because look at me, right? It's never too late. Do yourself justice.
Mhm.
You know, you are enough.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it. And I want to thank all those who are listening and watching, and the Slim Nation AM special edition show here on this Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning from where Tracy is. But we
Thank you
appreciate
for
you.
having
Yeah,
me.
thanks
It's
again.
always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure, and you always be a dear friend and schoolmate. We always have this in common. That's
Exactly.
but also from the same city. You know, grew up in the same city. Even
Mhm.
though during that time I was ahead of you, so I didn't know you then.
But you know me now.
I know you now. Union brought us together, and we're forever
That's right.
bonded. You know, in many ways. Yeah.
Exactly.
But thanks again.
Exactly.
We appreciate you. And thanks everybody, and remember, be aware, be informed, and as always, be involved. Thank you. Your vote is your voice. Take care. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye.